Welcome to Red Kingdom Sports, and we are going to discuss our Chiefs preview for Week 13 when they go up against the 6-5 Broncos, who are last in the AFC West. But I don't think that really means anything because the Chiefs are at the top at 7-4, first in the AFC West. However, every other team in the division is also 6-5, just like the Broncos. If you look at the Broncos, they have not beat the Chiefs since 2015. This game got flexed to Sunday Night Football, I believe, which, I mean, I enjoy primetime games. I enjoy the Chiefs being a really good football team, a great football team, a must-watch football team. But sometimes noon games are just great, and I wish we could just watch them at noon, I should say. And I just hope the Chiefs beat the Donkeys. So let's get into it. The Broncos, a little piece that I saw was Vic Fangio said that Pat Surtain could line up on Kelsey. Now, don't get me wrong. He's a great rookie secondary player. He's fantastic. Like, he had 2 interceptions last week against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, one of them going for a pick six. Like, him and that Justin Simmons, like, those two guys, their pass defense completely shut down Justin Herbert last week. But putting him on Kelsey, a young guy on Kelsey, I think is a really, really bad move. I really do. I don't think it's smart at all. Kelsey will find, because Kelsey, like, yeah, they may have a play call, drawn up that Andy Reid calls, Eric Bieniemy calls, whatever. But Kelsey's so good at finding, like, the holes in a defense and just sitting there waiting for the ball that I think that's a really, really dumb idea to put him on there, because Kelsey will find his way open no matter who is playing on him. So when I saw that, I thought that was really really dumb idea to put a young guy on Travis Kelsey, who I think can honestly beat anybody. Kelsey's been a little bit beat up recently, but I still think putting Pat Surtain on him could be a bad idea. If you ask me, I feel like the Broncos are somewhat of an inconsistent team, I guess, because they've definitely blown out some teams. They've looked really, really good. Like, they've played very bad in their losses, but in their wins they looked, fairly good. Dominated the Cowboys, but then they got destroyed by the Eagles. Then they shut down Justin Herbert. So I'll be honest, I don't know what to make of the Broncos. You have Teddy Bridgewater, who's a very serviceable quarterback, guy who's going to get the Broncos a few wins. Not really going to be the reason that they lose many games. Last week, he did get injured. He didn't really do much. It was more or less their run game that played very, very well against the Chargers. So Chiefs are definitely going to have their hands full against that Broncos running game. The Chiefs' run defense has definitely stepped up and played much better, but that still can be a weakness of the Chiefs because, they get on the outside like they did on a couple of plays with Tony Pollard last week and the Cowboys, that they'll break off for a few yards. And, that really, the outside run defense of the Chiefs isn't the best. So we'll see how well they hold up there. But, Von Miller did leave the Broncos earlier this year, but since then, I think they've played fine defensively. Their defense is definitely not a pushover defense. But offensively, they're just not flashy. Like I said, they did shut down the Chargers last week, but their offense isn't necessarily the best. They're not flashy. They don't do very much. Now, they do have Jerry Jeudy, who's a great young receiver. They did just pay a couple of their guys, big contracts, so they're going to be there for a while. So they do have, receiver corner pieces that they're going to want there. So, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, serviceable quarterback. When he played the Chiefs last year, he played fairly well when he was with the Panthers. He may be, a little bit older than a guy, had a few injuries, but he's still very dangerous with his legs. Last year, like I mentioned, when they played him when he was with the Panthers, he broke off for one of the biggest plays. I think it was like a third and very long, broke off for a run, able to get the first down. So he's still dangerous with his legs. I mentioned Jerry Jeudy, great young receiver. Can't let him have a big game. But if we look defensively at the way that the Chiefs have been playing, I think it'll be all right. Because if you look at the way the secondary has been playing for the Chiefs, you have Ward, Fenton, Snead, Honey Badger, and Thornhill. Those guys last week against the Cowboys completely balled out. Snead by far was it wasn't last week, but before their bye week, was by far the best player on the defense for the Chiefs last week. He's physical, he's fast, he's tough. He'll make sure that you don't get any extra yards. The way that he was, hitting those Cowboys receivers, making sure that his presence was felt. Snead could, in the future, honestly be a defensive player of the year caliber player. Like, he is starting to become a very elite player on the defensive side of the ball. And you have guys like Ward, Fenton, Ward against the Cowboys, that great interception when he was covering CD. And then you have Fenton, who has just quietly been balling out, been one of the best cornerbacks in all of football this year. So you have that defense has been playing fantastic. So you can't let Jerry Jeudy or any of their guys have a good game. I think Melvin Gordon last week did have a fairly good game against the Chargers, like I was mentioning. You can't let the Broncos run game go crazy. But then you look at the front of the Chiefs defense. You have Jones, you have Clark, who's been balling out, Melvin Ingram coming to the team. You have those great young linebackers. Anthony Hitchens came back. He looked very solid. But you have Gay and Bolton. Those two guys are so fast, so quick. Get to the ball, run straight downhill. They'll hit the gaps. They'll hit you just as hard as you're going to hit them running the football. So that defense has definitely stepped up, playing very, very physical football. The defense is definitely, some people try to put asterisks against who they've been playing. The Daniel Jones, a beat-up Cowboys team. But I don't think you can take that away from them because, it's still the NFL. You're still playing an elite level offense. They may have been down a couple guys, but they got Gallup back. They've shown that Tony Pollard, Zeke can definitely go crazy in a game if they wanted to, and they shut them down fairly well. So I think, defensive wise, I think this defense is definitely good enough to make it to a Super Bowl, make a huge playoff run, and win the Super Bowl. Like I really do. This defense. It has a lot. It reminds me a lot of the 2019 Chiefs defense, who struggled for parts of the season. They played the Titans that year, went off to be the number one defense in football. Right now, yards wise, they're about middle of the pack. But then you look at the points per game that they're giving up. They're not giving up very many points. They only gave up 9 points and 0 touchdowns against a very, very great Cowboys offense. People say, albeit they didn't have their top weapons, but at the same time, you look at how much money they're playing Dak Prescott. You could argue that it should be Dak that's trying to get the Cowboys in position to win. It's not the guys around him. They paid Dak to be that guy, to be the game changer. And so I think the way that the defense, we gave Frank Clark a lot of crap. He's definitely stepped up. Chris Jones moving back to the middle. He's an absolute beast. He's just disrupting everything right now, everything. So that definitely rejuvenated this defense. And I love everything the defense is doing. The Broncos offensively aren't flashy, but, I think they're fairly efficient. If you do something stupid, I feel like they're definitely good enough to exploit it. So don't let them do that. And then offensively for the Chiefs, I want to see them put a full game together. I mean, they got off to a hot start against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. They did. But I feel like the best game they put together all season long was against the Raiders on that Sunday Night Football like 3 weeks ago. I really think that was the best game they put together by far. I really do. And I want to see more of that. Because they started off very hot against the Cowboys. They went out to a 16-0, 16-3 lead. The offense looked like it couldn't be stopped, and then the turnover starting to happen. That interception by Kelsey definitely looked like it hurt the flow of the offense a little bit. That definitely did not help them whatsoever. That kind of sucked because they were moving the ball, and honestly, on that drive, if Kelsey catches that ball, I think it's going for a first down. I believe on the play. I could be wrong, but even if it doesn't, he catches the ball, gets a few yards, drive continues. They go down, kick a field goal, and the game on the scoreboard looks a little bit better because offensively they started off very well. They did. They started off just as they did against the Raiders, but then it went back to the turnovers. Micah Parsons obviously was a beast, caused the turnover and the fumble by Mahomes. But I really want to see the offense put a full game together. And I mean, they're not playing an easy defense, but I was watching the NFL's YouTube page and their preview. They did say that the Broncos do struggle on third down defense. They give up a lot of first downs on third down, and the Chiefs are the number one offense on third down. So that's definitely something that I'm sure Andy Reid, smart guy, really one of the best coach in football, maybe behind Belichick, but still, he definitely will see that, and he's like, okay, we gotta win first and second down, but he's gonna be definitely dialing up his best plays on third down because he sees that and he's going to go right for the head. But yeah, I mentioned the Kelsey missed catch, ball intercepted, Mahomes fumbled. Then if you look at the positive from that, the defense definitely showed up, didn't give up any touchdowns. So that is definitely a positive to come off those turnovers, but I would love to see those turnovers cleaned up. I'd love to see the ball ran a little bit more. They're averaging 4.6 yards a carry. And The Broncos, at times, the Broncos have an elite pass defense. Like, that's a very scary pass defense. I looked at the numbers, and Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain for sure are definitely two guys that, Mahomes, I mean, you have Surtain, who's a young guy. I think they can still throw at him. You have Hill's speed, and then if they're going to line him up on Kelsey, that's going to be a mistake. You have Hardman's speed. You have Pringle, who I think who has very good hands. So I think, as elite as that pass defense is for the Broncos, I still think Mahomes is good enough. He can chew up any defense. I don't think it matters. But I was looking at the stats from other games, and the Broncos have given up a lot of rushing yards in multiple games. Now, obviously, the situations are different, and I think stats can sometimes not be as a good indicator of how a game went, but rushing yards, I think, is a good indicator about how a game goes, because if you're giving up a lot of rushing yards, that probably means your defense is on the field a lot. So the Broncos definitely at times have given up, I see they gave up almost 200 yards rushing to the Eagles. Now, that was on the back of Jalen Hurts running the ball. Miles Sanders had a good game. But I still think, if they use Clyde, I think they're going to be in a good spot. I love how physical of a runner he is. He gets low. He, pops his shoulders. He's strong. His legs are strong. And I think he had a run last year against the Broncos. I think it was a snow game where, he broke like 5, 6, 7 tackles on one play. So use Clyde. I think, his physical toughness, I think he can definitely help get that run game established, which the Chiefs desperately need to establish some kind of run, because if you establish the run, the Chiefs defense is so deadly that, you establish the run, then they're play actioning, and then the defense has no idea what to do, and that opens up that huge pass, that deep pass to Hardman, Hill, Robinson, Pringle, all those guys. So I think, Kelsey can even get deep. So, that run game, I think that's something that the Chiefs build on, use a little bit better. I think these games are going to start to get out of hand for their opponents real quickly, because then that's even more things that they're going to have to try to stop. Because like I mentioned, the Broncos have given up over 100 yards, and it wasn't just like a little over 100, it was like 150 something odd yards, so it didn't look pretty. But I mean, if they have to, use some jet motion with Hill, Hardman, use their speed, get on the edges, let them make plays. Seeing Hill make plays is one of the funnest things you can see in football, so just let him make his plays. Obviously in the passing game, we've mentioned this, they need to catch the ball, stop dropping passes. Those are the chunk of Mahomes' interceptions this year, and that's definitely been an issue for the team. Defense, like I mentioned, just continue playing great. Pass rush, as I mentioned, that's starting to look a lot better. Sack Nation is back. They just need to continue playing with speed and energy, contain Teddy. I mentioned his days in Carolina last year, played them, and he had a very solid game with his legs, and don't let him go crazy with his legs, because he still is deadly with those. But yeah, the Broncos defensive wise, they only give up 18 points per game. I'd definitely love to see that at least doubled. 36 points. It's a primetime game. Standalone, got flexed. It's like, all right, we got the momentum, we got the energy. Dominate our division rival, and let's beat the Donkeys on Sunday Night Football. So that is my preview of the Chiefs and the Broncos Week 13 edition. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.